Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session, Forest Sector's Contribution to NDC and Global Cooperation Network of South Korea. The side event was delayed like 5 minutes, so I will try to finish in time our session. So before our session, if you need some snack, you can use the snack side of our booth. So we prepared some snack there. And my name is Kim Hyung-soo from Korea Research Institute on Climate Change, and it's a great honor to moderate today's session. Today's event will consist of presentations and a panel discussion, and after that we will conclude with a group photo after the programs finish. First of all, I would like to introduce the participants who will be leading today's session. It is with great honor to present Mr. Kim Jong-ryul, Vice Administrator of Presidential Commissions on Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth. And we are also pleased to welcome Mr. Frederick Ganyong Lebrun, Global Senior Director of South Pole. And Mr. So Soon-jin, General Manager at the Korea Forestry Promotion Institute. And Ms. Christina Major-Kurth, Managing Director at the Architecture of Red Plus Transactions. And Professor Im Chul-hee from Kookmin University. And before today's program, it is my great honor to invite Mr. Kim Jong-ryul to deliver the opening remarks. Please welcome him with a round of applause.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It is a great honor to deliver my opening remarks this session on forest. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Korea Forest Promotion Institute and the Korea Research Institute on Climate Change for organizing this valuable seminar. And I also extend a warm welcome to everyone here today. As Brazil, as you know, cost of the COP30 is emphasizing conservation of rainforest. As carbon sink, this seminar seems timely and very meaningful. Forests are one of the nature-based solutions to achieving NDCs and strengthening climate resilience through carbon sequestration, biodiversity preservation, and local community livelihood support. Korea is a greener country. About 63% of its territory is covered by forest. However, it has not been always green. Following the Korean War, all territory was severely devastated to the point of being barren. In response, the Korean government established a long-term plan for reforestation to restore forest and effectively implemented it. Our citizens also voluntarily devoted themselves to planting trees and caring for them. Also, government made a national holiday for planting trees every April 5th. So all people in Korean people celebrate to plant trees. Thanks to these efforts, the volume of each forest has increased by nearly 14 times compared to the 1970s. Today, each forest sequesters approximately 40 million tons of CO2 annually, offsetting around the 6% of the national emissions. Also, UNESCO dedicated Korea's efforts on reforestation as the memory of World Register last April. We wish to address global climate crisis by reducing forest degradation worldwide based on our unique know-how and resources. Our new government under President Lee Jae-myung, he inaugurated in this June, is trying to achieve both carbon neutrality and economic growth through grand energy transition, mostly renewables. Regarding new target of 2035 NDCs, we just concluded discussion on this Monday. Our new target is range from the 53% to 61%. 53% means the value of the linear point from the highest one to net zero 2050. 61% is the value IPCC recommend all parties should reduce their emissions more than 60% by over the 2019. So our the number of 61 is the same as 60 in 2019. Also in new target, the sector of the forest will remain very important sector. It composed around the 38 million ton annually. So forest will be a very important resource to reduce emissions in our country. It will also actively promote nature-based solutions such as carbon sequestration from forest. To conclude, I would like to emphasize that forest must be essential part of domestic and global design to achieve our ambitious goals. I look forward to active and constructive discussion today. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your meaningful remarks. Now, we will proceed with presentations, and it's my pleasure to invite our first speaker, Senior Director Frederick Ganyong Lebrun from South Pole, and he will deliver a presentation on development of global carbon market and trends in the forest sector. Please welcome him with a big hand. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here again this year to present some trends on the carbon market. And thank you very much for the introduction. I'm sure you pronounced my name a lot better than I would pronounce yours. So let me find the clicker. We're going in the right direction. So carbon markets is one of the financing mechanisms to finance the protection of forests and all types of interventions in the forestry sector. And it is a known mechanism that's been used for actually a couple of decades now to finance these types of activities. However, we've gone through different waves of improvements and reforms, and now what I want to present and bring to you is some of that history, but mostly looking forward, how might we be able to leverage notably compliance markets to bring financing to forest protection. So South Pole is a carbon market consultant and carbon project developer working across all sectors effectively, so doing also projects in the energy sector, waste sector, technical removals, for example. But the focus and the DNA, I would say, of South Pole really rests in nature-based solutions, where we've actually developed more than 800 projects, and we have dedicated teams working on these types of projects around the world with a strong focus in Latin America. And what I want to start with is just making sure that we have an understanding of the different sources of financing in carbon markets. For the last decade, the voluntary carbon market was the primary source of carbon finance for these types of projects. And in 2024, for example, the voluntary carbon market leveraged 3 billion in value and retired 250 megatons. So it has a significant impact, and these funds and this finance is actually flowing from corporations and different types of organizations who want to voluntarily make environmental claims for financing environmental protection and forest protection in particular. What is emerging on the side and in parallel, and there are lots of synergies between the two, are what we call compliance markets. Much greater in value, because what we capture here is also the value of transactions between entities that are under emissions trading systems, like the one in Korea, for instance. But that said, carbon credits from the forestry sector can also be sold into these systems, some of them, to be used as a compliance instrument for a company to comply with a national regulation or a subnational regulation. So that's the case, for example, in Singapore, that accepts international credits. And I want to commend also Korea for opening up its market and making international credits eligible for compliance as well. The voluntary market has used what we call independent standards for the generation of the carbon credits. And those independent standards are now also used to create carbon credits that can be eligible for use under compliance markets and, for example, the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. I'll get this right, I have to turn it around. So if we look at the history of the voluntary market in this case, we've seen a very high growth in issuance. So this is projects bringing carbon credits to the market, and it's been a fast growth up until 2022, with a significant contribution from the forestry and land use sector. So that's always been a very large share of the carbon projects, and that has actually reduced also with the share of the market as methodologies are being revised, and as a community we start also shifting and focusing on certain types of projects, notably afforestation, reforestation projects, with a focus on supporting companies that have net zero targets. This is just a sample of the 20th largest projects in the world, and as we can see here in green is that some of the largest projects are actually in forestry and land use sector. So there's a very significant contribution of these types of projects, and now we also have jurisdictional red approaches that can really enable the sector to actually scale and have a much more transformative impact as they are embedded in national policies and can bring much larger volumes to the market. And we'll hear a lot more about this later on, I'm sure. The reduction in the changes in the market and the reforms of methodologies has led to a full review by the Integrity Council of the voluntary carbon market of pretty much all standards and all methodologies in the world. And so I wanted to just highlight the methodologies that have received an endorsement from the Integrity Council, because they actually meet the core carbon principles that the Integrity Council actually set out. And so we've moved from sort of integrity concerns and a need for revising methodologies to a full set now of methodologies that can be used and provide high quality credits to the market. We'll hear from our colleague here about R3. This is a jurisdictional red approach that has also been, in addition to having met the criteria of the ICVCM, has also been endorsed by the CORSIA scheme, not only for phase 1, but also for phase 2 that goes to 2030. And that's a very important signal, and that's part of what I called the compliance market early on. So we're moving from, and to some extent, or at least diversifying, I guess, the sources of demand by adding compliance demand. And there's a strong focus in these methodologies as well on removals, which will become increasingly important. What we're seeing in the trends in capital raised, right? To develop these kinds of projects, you need to raise capital up front, and there's a pretty clear shift towards nature restoration and removals types of projects in the type of capital that is raised by different types of projects. So again, the significance of the nature-based sector is very, very clear. They're very capital-intensive projects, and we can see the beginning of capital being raised for jurisdictional red projects, which is sort of a new type of project that I'm sure we'll talk about in the panel discussion as well. Finally, just from a project developer's perspective, one of our challenges is indeed to raise capital, to finance upfront the development of these types of projects. And as you can see at the top there, of course, the very early stages are the riskiest phases, and probably the hardest to raise capital for. And that's why we can leverage the developer's balance sheet for some of this, but we really critically need also concessional capital and grants to take a project and move it all the way to registration and even first issuance when it can actually start generating carbon revenue to sustain its activities forward. And only then can we then secure carbon finance that can be leveraged, so a long-term offtake agreement where you have a guaranteed, effectively, revenue from carbon year after year, to leverage then more conventional sources of capital through debt, through mezzanine financing, etc. So it's a very complex structuring that needs to happen. So we need expertise in trees, but we need also carbon finance structuring expertise to get these off the ground. Last two slides, I want to highlight, we saw the reduction in issuance from existing projects, but what I want to highlight is that in 2024, it was the highest retirement year, which means that it is the year in which corporates used the most carbon credits. So the demand signal that we are getting from the voluntary market remains quite strong, and it was also forestry and land use held the highest share. So we're seeing a reduction in renewable energy projects and an increase in a way of nature-based type projects. And so to conclude, as we are shifting to new project types, or as we are seeing more removals projects and J-RED projects coming up, it is because it's essential for achieving net zero. And there's a very strong signal there with companies and countries setting net zero targets over the long term. And we can expect markets to continue growing, as I just showed. I think we're getting early signals of that, including with the addition of CORSIA and some compliance markets. And so as a buyer, it is timely to secure and lock in your supply now over long-term offtake agreements with the expectation, should these trends continue effectively. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick, and I will hand over the mic to the second speaker, Mr. So Soon-jin, General Manager of Korea Forestry Promotion Institute, will deliver a presentation on technological progress of Korea's forest carbon system and global spread. Please welcome him with a warm round of applause. Thank you.
Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. It's very honored to be here to present our institutions related to the carbon, the voluntary carbon markets. So we, KOFPI, okay. Okay, so we are a scheme owner actually. So I'd like to introduce what we achieved last year. Actually, last year we introduced our systems at this stage at COP29, and this year we'll present what we achieved. So it's very honor that what we did in front of you guys. So COFPI is on the public institutions. So we work with the Korea Forest Service, and Korea Forest Service make the policy, and we implement that. So the carbon institution is one of the system that we run about. I'm sorry, it's quite confusing actually. So before starting, I'd like to say about the change of our forest status, because our scheme is to make our forest more sustainably. So as you can see this slide, in 1950, our forest is very devastated, but with very hard work from government and citizens, we convert our forest, our land into very green area like this. But it's not the end actually. We need to do something because the forest is getting aged. Aging forest is decreasing their capacity to absorb the carbon. So we need to do something. What we have to do, as you can see here, in 2008, the total absorption of the forest reached to 60 million tons. But now it decreased to 40 million tons. It will decrease to 50 million tons in 2050. It's a big decrease. So what should we do? We need to introduce circular forest management system. We start in cutting the tree, harvesting the tree, not planting in situation in Korea, because we don't have any place to plant. So we have to replace all the trees with new trees. That's what we do. So we have to plant in the area harvested. With the harvested wood, we have to make the HWPs, and we have to use them as renewable energy like that. It's a circular system, but it's not function well. Why? Each activity is not economically feasible. So our scheme, carbon institution, can help them. We believe that's the role that we are doing now. As you can see, the wood self-sufficiency is less than 20%. We just use around 20% of the domestic wood for the wood uses. So as I said before, we have to use the carbon institution to support those activities be implemented. So that's the reason why we operate our carbon institutions. So let's look into the carbon institutions. Korea Forest Carbon Offset Scheme. This is the system in which forest owner and company voluntarily do some activity to increase carbon absorptions. Additionally, if they do that, the government certify the amount of the mitigation impact. With that insurance, the project developers can sell them in the market to make their low profitability to be reinforced. So this system, this institution is based on the law actually. It's very different from the voluntary institutions, but it gives the market some trustworthy value. So the buyer can be more confident when participating in our institutions. We start with just 2 projects in 2013, but nowadays we have more than 6,000 restoration projects. It's quite big growth. So there are some kind of the methodologies we are utilizing. So the apportation or representation is a type that we can support, and utilization of wood product is another type that we are using. This is the statistics of the institutions. Among registered 600 projects, 60 projects are in the page of the insurance. So this project produced 108,000 tons credit in the market. But the problem is the demand, as you said. Demand is very low, just 23,000 tons just sold in the market. There are some so we have lots of work to do to decrease the gap between supply and demand. But there are still some very positive signal in the market. There are lots of carbon neutral events in Korea, and the innovative company introduced carbon offsetting applications to connect buyer and supplier. And some company produce carbon neutrality products that delete their carbon footprint with our credit. It's very meaningful. Even the individuals also participated in our institution. They buy our credit and they delete their carbon footprint. It's very social movement. It's very impressive cultural movement. But how about the company? How can we make the company be a very aggressive buyer in the market? Maybe they are worried about the integrity on the credit. So how can we overcome this challenge? We think the technology is the answer. So we are trying to introduce lots of technologies. Another aspect that we would like to introduce technology is the scale. Our project scale is much smaller than the global scale. So the customer, the buyer, project developer, the supplier, they have to lots of work, project developers, with very small hope to gain the money. For the small scale project development, we ask them to follow the procedure, very complex procedure. We have to do that because our system also aligns with the global standard. So small scale, the project developers also have to write very comprehensive project development plans, and they have to do very robust MRV measurement, and they have to be checked by the third-party validation company. It's too much burden for them to get some money. So we have to make these procedures more effective and more efficient with technologies. For example, at this moment, the project developers or the consulting firm have to climb very steep mountains with lots of equipment to measure, for measurement. Why don't we change this system to MRV, digital MRV through the remote sensing? So we have some project developer that studied these systems using radar technology. So they measure each trees at that site with radar to check each individual volumes of the trees, like this. It is meaningful because with this digitalized information, verification company also can take some advantage of doing verification. They don't need to go inside the forest because they can check with digitalized information about if the data is genuine or not. So at this stage of the crediting, trading, or offsetting, it also can be used. So the buyer can be more confident if they check the digitalized data. So, and you also introduce blockchain technology to increase the traceability of the credits. We introduced this carbon marketplace just a month ago, using blockchain technologies. So supplier can show what characteristics they have, what benefit they can provide to buyers, and buyers can choose what they really want, what the type of they really want to buy. This cyberspace is going to be very useful. I'm not sure yet, but it's going to be very useful. So we reach this stage. We innovate our systems using the digital MRV and blockchain technologies. But what we do next? I think we will connect the emission data of the corporate into our system. So the corporate can easily figure out how much they have to buy the carbon credit to offset their emissions. Next step is to link the investors with the project developers. It's going to be happen at the same place, at investment platform. So we will innovate our registry systems to transaction and investment platform. That's the picture I'm drawing with my colleagues. For corporate, ESG is really important values. So why don't we use the ESG value to draw the private corporate to join forestry industry, forestry project. So our goal is not just transaction. Our goal is not just transaction. Our goal is to industrialize the forestry in more scale, the bigger scale. So using our institutions, we're gonna make the financial investor to join the forestry project, and we're gonna make them to secure their carbon credit by their own invested project like this. This is the final goal of our institution. Thank you very much. It's quite a long story. Thank you very much.
Thank you for good presentation, and Mr. So Seung-jin. And our third speaker is Miss Christina Major-Kurth, Managing Director at ART, and she will deliver the presentation on jurisdictional REDD+ experiences and success factors.
Excellent. I've learned from the speakers before me how to change the slides. So thank you very, very much for the invitation to be here today. I am honored to be part of this panel. As mentioned, I'm the Managing Director of the ART Secretariat. ART is the Architecture for REDD+ Transactions. Trees is actually our standard, though everybody calls us ART Trees, which we don't mind. But I am the Managing Director, and I'm proud to say I was the very first person hired to start with ART. So I've been with the program for 7 years and excited to share where we are today. So for those that might not be familiar with REDD, this is not a new concept. It's been part of the UNFCCC framework for a very long time. REDD is the reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, and the plus encompasses a lot of the other forestry types of activities, including the conservation, sustainable forest management, and enhancements of forest carbon stocks. As mentioned, we are a jurisdictional REDD+ program, so we do not actually credit projects. We were designed specifically for national and subnational governments. There were a lot of reasons for that. When we started about 7.5 years ago, we realized that there were a lot of market pathways for projects, which is amazing, and there are a lot of really good REDD+ projects out there. but there really wasn't a pathway to market for governments. And there are some things that governments do that projects will never be able to do. Governments can do land tenure, governments can enforce laws, establish national parks or protected areas, have fiscal policies, do agricultural policies. A lot of the programs that we just heard about really can't be done, 100 hectares at a time by individual projects. And there are some really amazing benefits to looking at things across a whole landscape. So, I guess it's also important to note that sometimes people think of jurisdictional RED as a collection of projects. And that's really not it. It's not just an aggregation of projects that happen to be next door. The goal is to really have a transformative landscape plan and to really look at some of these issues across the entire landscape, which is one of the benefits to jurisdictional scale, because you can have these policy driver changes, you can look at some of the underlying causes of deforestation and degradation across the whole landscape, hopefully working with all the smaller scale activities as well, which is a key component that we'll talk about a little bit later. There's also some efficiencies and looking at market concerns around leakage or just shifting the deforestation, degradation in other places. Mitigating the risk of reversal is easier at a jurisdictional scale than necessarily project by project, because you can, again, do a comprehensive planning. So we're really excited to develop a program to really incentivize governments to keep this in mind in their planning. So ART, as I mentioned, we are a carbon crediting program. As we heard a little bit earlier, so we do document results, and we'll talk about all the different ways that those results can be used, but it's important to us that governments have choices. It's not up to us what governments do with their credits or how they monetize them. We just want them to get a good price and a lot of demand. So we try to ensure that we're approved as many places as possible. At the end of the day, our job is to drive finance. So if we generate credits that nobody buys, that's not really success. We really want to help drive finance to make these changes. It's not easy to transform economies or to have economic growth without relying on forests or to do programs like we just heard about. So it's important to us to be able to provide that background. We are an independent organization, so we have our own board of directors and the secretariat and everything that you might imagine. Like all carbon standards, though, we do not get involved in the transactions. So our job is to work with, we call them participants, but these are the governments that are involved in our program. We provide oversight to the validation and verification bodies who ensure that the jurisdictional programs meet our requirements, and then the jurisdictions are able to transact however they want. And we'll talk a little bit more about the monetization. So I'm excited to say that we have 26 programs in our portfolio right now. Peru actually has 2. They have the first indigenous-led jurisdictional program, and then they have a government-led subnational program as well. But as you can see, they're throughout the world. We have some that are subnational governments in Brazil and Mexico, and then the rest are all national governments. Some are subnational accounting areas, and some are the entire country. Right now, we have 5 programs in validation and verification. So Guyana, Costa Rica, Ghana, Vietnam, and Tocantins here in Brazil. Tocantins started about a month ago. They're all under validation and verification. We expect another at least 3 to start by the end of January. And then a whole bunch more coming right after. So we're really excited to see the progress. Some people say, yes, but you've been around for a while, so why is it only now that they're getting to verification? And the answer is because our standard is hard, and no government actually had everything they needed when they started, and so they've needed time to gather the data, to meet our safeguards requirements, and so now they're all at the point that they can actually be submitting the documentation and moving through verification. As I mentioned, our standard is called TREES, the RED Plus Environmental Excellence Standard. With all carbon accounting standards, this lists our eligibility requirements, the carbon accounting rules, and all of our safeguards as well. So because we're not a project standard, we don't actually have a lot of different methodologies. We just have a single standard that all jurisdictions use. Within that, though, we have 3 crediting approaches, which is basically 3 different ways to set a baseline. We call them crediting approaches because it's jurisdictional, but these are basically our baselines. So 2 approaches look at reducing emissions. our trees crediting approach, this is really for jurisdictions that are actively experiencing high deforestation and high degradation emissions and are reducing them. So that's based on a 5-year historical average. HFLD, or the High Forest, Low Deforestation Crediting Approach, looks at the emissions reductions from jurisdictions that, as you might imagine, have high forest and low deforestation. This was really important to the art board when we were designing art. So if you think about how governments or the forest, trajectory goes, you lose a lot of forests, you need to reduce your emissions from forest deforestation and forest degradation. That's the trees crediting level. The next step would be to restore your forests. That's our removals approach. But then what happens? You've kept your forest deforestation rates low, you've restored your forests, and currently most of the market says you're good to go. Your trees will never have another threat, you're fine, no one will ever discover gold, there will never be agriculture pressures, and we know that that is not true. Jurisdictions that have high forest, low deforestation are that way because they've been actively preventing the deforestation. So indigenous territories, places like Guyana, Suriname, other places like that. So we have a unique crediting approach that says business as usual for these jurisdictions is not the historical average. That's the with project situation, right? They have been actively doing activities. So we have a crediting approach that allows a proxy for what deforestation would occur if they were to quit doing activities tomorrow. So those are our 3 crediting approaches, but the idea is to provide incentives wherever governments are, right? We want them to reduce deforestation, we want them to restore, and then we want them to keep doing work. They can't just walk away and assume everything will be fine. We do have double counting provisions. So one of the questions I often get asked is, you are a jurisdictional program, so you must hate projects, right? And not see any need. And that could not be farther from the truth. We actually really think one of the benefits of a jurisdictional scale program is you can integrate these actions and these plans across all the different scales. And we have numerous safeguards around participatory approaches, ensuring that all these different actors in the landscape are part of the planning. You're going to be more successful. It will last longer if everybody's in the same page and moving in the same direction. So we do really think that it's important to have all these different actors. That being said, it is not high integrity to issue credits for the same activity under multiple programs. So we do have provisions to avoid double counting. As I mentioned, we also have really rigorous safeguards. So all the safeguards are built into trees. We don't think that they're an afterthought, so they're not in a separate standard. They're integrated. Because we're a jurisdictional program, the UNFCCC already negotiated REDD+ safeguards called the Cancun Safeguards. So what we have done is unpack the Cancun Safeguards into verifiable themes and indicators. So we have each of the Cancun Safeguards is broken out into 3 indicators: the structure, the process, and the outcome indicator. The idea there is that the structure indicators are how the government has policies or laws or a decree that covers that topic. The process indicator requires them to say, that's great that you have it on paper, but does anybody have resources to actually implement it? What's the process by which it gets done? And then the outcome is, it's great that someone was assigned it, but is anyone paying attention to the effectiveness of the process? And are you actually evaluating how these programs are being implemented? So every verification looks at safeguards. You cannot get trees credits without having the safeguards verified as well. As I mentioned, it's really important to us that the governments have choices of how to monetize results. And I say results because one of the things that's not listed here is results-based payment. So the countries don't have to actually use them as offset credits. They could use our process to document the outcomes of their programs and receive results-based payments as contributions to their NDC or other types of financing. Within the credit space, as mentioned, thank you for the plug earlier, we are all 3 crediting approaches are eligible for CORSIA. As of 2 weeks ago, we're eligible for phase 2, which is super exciting. We're also approved under ICROA. Under ICVCM, ART as a program is approved, and the trees crediting level is approved, and we're hoping any day now that they'll finish the review of the other two. They had a lot of methodologies to look at, so we're just waiting our turn, and we hope to have approvals on that very soon. And then the government of Singapore has also approved trees credits for use in their program. Though they're still evaluating the HFLD, they've gotten through two, and they're looking at the third one now. But the idea is that we will continue to explore other pathways for governments to find financing. So as I mentioned, with those approvals, trees credits could be used as ITMOs under Article 6.2, having government to government. CORSIA is actually a 6.2 mechanism as well, so we are approved under CORSIA. They could sell and receive finance from voluntary buyers, either for carbon or for environmental, social, or governance commitments. As I mentioned, they could receive results-based payments. Some governments, like Ecuador, for example, you can't have a credit. No one is allowed to own the environmental attributes, so they are moving to change things, but in the beginning, they were only allowed to receive results-based payments, and that's fine. We can facilitate that too. But even for results-based payments, investors want to know that they're real and additional and all those same types of things. So this allows governments to choose how they wish to do it. Last but not least, just to show some of the transactions. So, we saw some of the demand slides earlier, which you continue to see increasing demand for jurisdictional REDD+ credits. The LEAF Coalition, of which South Korea is part, so thank you so very much for your contribution to that, is an amazing demand signal for governments. There's a bunch of people from Emergent and LEAF around, so if you haven't learned more about that program, please do. That has been a great motivator for governments to start moving through the process, but they've committed over 1.5 billion now. Guyana's initial transaction was worth 750 million USD with an average price of $20 per ton for a 15-year commitment. They've sold to 15 different airlines for CORSIA compliance, including the first two actual compliance cancellations. Ghana's sold, actually they've had more transactions since this slide was written, so they have a higher average price now, but still we're seeing around 15.5. And Tocantins had a $2 billion purchase agreement with Mercuria, which included a significant amount of upfront financing to help develop the program. So we're seeing, just increasing demand, which is really exciting. So with that, I will stop, but thank you so much for your attention, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Christina, and we'll proceed to our final presentation. Professor Im Chul-hee from Kookmin University will give us a presentation on digital MRV progress under Korea's REDD+ Corporation.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This is Chul-hee Lim in Kookmin University, as Mr. Kim introduced. And thank you very much for inviting me. It is an honor to be here, I'm happy to be here for sharing my recent works and experience to everyone. So, most of my slides included many of cases using digital MI-based progress. So, and one of them is the Korea Forest Service and another country working with the REDD+ project. So it is included. And right here, yes. So first of all, I would like to show some of our concept and the insights, and then try to show some of cases, Timor or Solomon, Indonesia, and Laos. Yeah, first of all, many of speakers mentioned before, climate crisis and nature-based solution is very important in terms of solving that problems, both of mitigation and adaptations. So we try to how to contribute in terms of climate change and MBS as well. So nowadays we focused on mangrove and the mangrove MBS sectors, but like these issues will show tomorrow more, because our university will open the side event tomorrow morning, and that main topic is mangrove. So some of slides will show you again tomorrow. Anyway, today my mainly topic is the role of digital MIV in terms of enhancing the transparency and trust for the MBS carbon credit. So we would like to building the trust and transparency in nature-based carbon credit through MLB. So in case of traditional MLB, they has a high cost and low accessibility than before, but we in terms of digitalized monitoring and reporting and verification system can be automated, and low cost monitoring is available, and also limited and fragmented data will overcome more real-time and integrated data systems and faster reporting and verification, and most of them the scalable and system-wide coverage is very important for the MBA section of the carbon credit. So like these issues, the digital MIV streamline the generation of management of carbon credit from nature-based solutions. So like this scheme, we try to develop some of a project and monitored their transparencies. So like this issue. So our university has some of the law, the digital MIV, like this measurement, reporting, and verification, and finally that can be accrediting. So it means near real-time monitoring and data collections to systematic and transparent documents, and then it can be support third-party validations and credibility, and also it can assist in auditing and error reductions. So, like this, academic progress can be contribute the transparency and carbon crediting as well. So, and then like this progress convert to the some of technical skills, and then finalize how to do in terms of national scale or project scale, can provide where can do our project, developing our project, or how much amount we can obtain the greenhouse gas emissions. So first of case is Timor-Leste. It was not a public sector. Actually, this work from one of private company of our country, but after that, so last year or some years ago, Timor-Leste government tried to make connection with our government. So currently hold now, but that project starting with company, but try to make connection with our public sectors as well. So, as you know, Timor-Leste is one of least developed country in Asia. So, very degraded region, included many of forestry, ocean, and coastal region, or in mountainous region as well. So, this is mainly a diagram of our study. So, at the time, we would like to, we developed one of the approach. We called it is SHADE, simplified and high accessible approach to detect deforestation and forest degradation. It means, in terms of, in case of the feasibility study, we cannot go there physically, but we can monitor and confirm the feasibility of the project. So the Australia approach, if we cannot have the physical field work or high accurately data set, if that, we can assess the deforestation rate or the project potential as well. So this is one of the our approach for least developed countries. At the time, we developed a two-wise model for first one is focused on only forestry, and another one is only focused on mangrove. And then we developed one of the carbon project focusing on the mangrove afforastations. So this is one of the samples, and one of them for focusing on the forestry area. So because at that time why we only focus on forestry because this tab is for a feasibility study. So how their forestry deforestation. So we would like to know the forest rate, deforestation rate. So we have to simplify the land cover. So forestry and non-forestry, water as well. So this is one of the research. So, and then another case is for mangrove. So the mangrove case will share tomorrow again. So finally, that case we registered in the BERA for mangrove afforastations. So because the manual of study suggests the afforestation of mangrove is most potential, has a potential for that project. So we suggest the afforestation project for mangrove. So, and then like this one is the suggesting some of the region for operational area based on digital MRV techniques as a drone, satellite, and geospatial techniques. And another case is Solomon Islands. It also conducted our university in last year. The Solomon, this project was from international agency, the Climate Technology Center Network, working with their Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. Actually, Solomon Islands is one of the one of the biggest mangrove country in the world. So they has many of species in large area in many of coastal regions. So they has many needs for conserving their mangrove and forest as well. So at the time, the mainly goal is conserving mangrove, but their members, local member and government officers try to develop the carbon credit using many of voluntary carbon market mechanisms. So we provide the information where mangroves live there, or where is the best restoration area as well. So this is one of the diagram for that. At the time, we suggest one of the model for mapping for mangrove. We called it AMAP, Artificial Intelligence-Based Mangrove Adaptive Mapping Tool in Pacific regions. We focused on Pacific region, but this approach and tools can cover entire of Earth for mangrove. So we try to apply many of country as well. So anyway, first of them on satellite information and training data is most important, and then finally we assess and projection how will do they in terms of climate change. So this is the field survey information. So we use artificial intelligence and some of models, but we have to do field survey because we need accurate information for training. So a field survey is most important, one of that. And workshop for with local government and many of international agencies. At the time, we obtained some of citizens' knowledge. So we called it is citizen science. So we can know some of where is the suitable region for mangrove. Anyway, this is one of the result of that, a map. And then, as I mentioned before, mangrove, the climate change impact on mangrove is also important because future perspectives is also required for developing a new mangrove project. So this is the current suitable area for mangrove, and then considering sea level rise and future climate change scenario, many of region for mangrove is not well compared with current regions. So this is the the full progress of the AMAP approach. And another case is Indonesia. So Indonesia working with Korea Forest Service, but this case we focused on not only forestry but also including peatland. So as you know, peatland is one of important land of the in terms of carbon absorptions. So that case we focused on the conserving peatland ecosystems for conserving and preventing the land carbon neutrality. So this is also one approach for assessing their land degradations and assessing their carbon credit as well. Yeah, working with their institute C4 and UNSRI is one of the university in local regions. So this is the we developed the time series land cover, including peatland. Actually, this is very it was a very hard work because general forestry classification of general forestry is not hard for us, but the peatland is remotely sensing. Peatland is very hard for in RS technicians, so it was a very hard work for us. Anyway, we conducted the time series land developing time series land cover, including peatland degradations. This is a case for around 30 years, and then assessing the carbon potential and red plus potential for that region study area. That was another sub-national or national case that was only focusing on some of small region, the perigee. So maybe not bilateral cooperation potentials, but in terms of voluntary carbon market, there can be one of the option for that. Anyway, last case is the Laos. So Laos is most important case, important project with Korea Forest Service and Laos government, I think. So this is last year. Maybe many of know that last year, 2 years ago, started the Laos Red Cross Center working with the Laos government and Korea Forest Service. And currently, we would like to check how it going on. Forestry, deforestation, or reforestation, or like that. So, but I recognize the many of region vegetation was decreased than before. The red dot means decreased vegetation than before. So we would like to classify again in time series. So for that, we have to do pre-processing and developing training data set again. That's why in terms of Laos, they provide many of field data set and forest time map, but not enough and not correct. So we have to make it again. So that required many effort from us. And then anyway, we developed many of training data set and deep learning model for classifying our new land cover, and then that included many of the land-specific indices. So finally, this is the classification scheme in their forest time map and FRAIL they submitted. So this is current result. Actually, few weeks later, we can measure the final result, hopefully. Anyway, this is the pilot result in current 10 years. So southern part of Pongsal is highly deforested, so we should check it in the field through the field survey. This is the combined map level 2, including each forest types. This is the close-up view of the highly deforested region as well. So anyway, they decreased more than 30,000 hectares in recent some years. So, but this is not a, as I mentioned before, this is not a final result. So amount is not yet set. So the trend is important, but a few weeks later, I would like to show some of ministry and institutions how much decreased than before. So this is currently our work, and this is also end of my slide. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for good presentation, Professor. And we will now move on to the panel discussion. And please, the three speakers and three panelists, please have a seat in front of the stage. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, I want to introduce three panelists because I didn't introduce themselves. First of all, Miss Yu Lee, Deputy Director at the Korea Forest Service. Sorry. And Dr. Choi Sung-ho, Team Leader at the Asia Forest Cooperation Organization. And Mr. Anand Sub, Senior Staff at the Korea Forestry Promotion Institute. And three speakers, I think already know about them. And I think there was 4 different kind of presentations. First of all, from South Pole, one of the major market players. There was a point of view of the carbon market, and there was one of the standard makers from the arts, and there was also from governmental side from the KOFPI, and there was also MRV technology from the Kookmin University. And so I think we can start with the point of view from the Korea Forest Service about today's session, or some additional comments. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Uri Lee, and I'm Deputy Director at the Korea Forest Service, responsible for climate change response related to forest. Today, I would like to share Korea's policies for the forest sector's contributions as removal to our nationally determined contributions. This week, Korea made a very meaningful step forward. Our 2035 NDC was approved at the cabinet meeting. During this COP, maybe next week, in the high-level meeting, maybe the Minister of Climate, Energy and Environment will officially announce Korea's 2035 NDC. To achieve our NDC targets, Korea must make significant emission reductions through various methods such as energy transition and green transformation. At the same time, carbon sinks continues to play a vital role in removing carbon. These include forest, blue carbon, and biochar, but forests still remain the most important sink. Under the 2030 NDC, Korea set a goal to contribute 25.5 million tons of greenhouse gas reductions through forest and harvested wood products. In the 2035 NDC, this contribution will increase to 36 million tons. That's more than 10 million tons higher. Korea is also pursuing international mitigation programs such as RED+. We aim to secure additional emission reductions abroad. Since the transition to green transformation such as CCUS and hydrogen-based steelmaking is still in progress, we have high expectations for the loss of carbon sinks forest. If every citizen in Korea plants just one tree per year, about 50 million trees annually, we can remove carbon faster and at lower price. However, while the importance of forests continues to grow, Korea's annual forest carbon absorption has been declining since its peak in 2008. This is because our forests are now dominated by older stands, aged 30 to 50 years, which absorb less carbon as they age. That is why active forest management is essential. We must plant, tend, harvest, and utilize wood in a sustainable circular forest system. To secure new carbon sinks, interministerial cooperation is also needed. As you may know, Korea is globally recognized as a successful reforestation country. Because reforestation is already completed, it is now difficult to find new areas for planting. So government will work across ministries to identify idle lands for afforestation and reforestation. At the same time, we must also protect and maintain healthy forests. Climate crisis is now a reality. This year, Korea suffered the worst wildfire in its history, burning more than 100,000 hectares. According to the NIFOS, National Institutes of Forest Science, these fires emitted 7.6 million tons of greenhouse gases. This clearly shows the importance of the adaptation such as wildfire prevention. In summary, Korea will continue to promote sustainable forest management, expansion of new carbon sink, greater use of domestic timber, and forest conservation as key policies to achieve our NDC targets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Yuri from the KFS. And secondly, we can listen more comments from the Dr. Chae Sung Ho about the RED Plus or global cooperation.
Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues and all speakers. It is my pleasure to join this panel discussion and also share FOCO experience and views in advancing forest-based climate actions across Asia. APOCO brings together 17 APOCO member countries to transform forest cooperation to the practical climate action. Our pride is to help member countries move from readiness to measurable mitigation outcomes aligned with the NDCs. Forestry are central to climate ambitions of APOCO member countries. Among 17 member countries, 12 countries include LULUCF in their NDC targets. Also, 11 countries have submitted RED Plus document UNCCC. However, readiness vary widely. Some countries have national forest monitoring systems, while others are still building safeguard, also the institutional arrangement and policy framework. APOCO provide targeted country-specific support to strengthen these foundations. APOCO already launched RED Plus initiative to help member countries establish the 4 key components, as you know. This help member countries progress from pilot activity to credible national systems. I'd like to inform our good example for with Lao PDR government. Already Professor Imchari already shared, and then APOCO is supporting the development of country-tailored RED Plus operational guidelines for Article 6.2, cooperation between Korea and Lao PDR, including core elements such as MRV, benefit sharings, and safeguard. This enables Laos to generate ITMOS for national and global NDC target and provide a regional model for high integrity Article 6 implementation. During this opportunity, I'd like to propose or I'd like to provide my comment. From our experience, scaling forest-based climate action requires more than institutional capacity and policy framework. At the previous COP, I emphasized that the importance of the project site selection and also capacity building as foundations for these for credible forest carbon programs. In the APOCO member countries regarding the governance, maybe for example like this one, implementation agency and policy is different. In Cambodia case, carbon policy managed by Ministry of Environment, but implementation by Forest Administration. That means that also Cambodia case, forest management divided. For Ministry of Environment and 75%. Also, Ministry also Association Administration 25%, very different. This is a governance gap. And then the site selection readiness may be verified and well prepared for forest site for reliable measurement of emissions reduction removers. APOCO support and countries such as Cambodia, Laos, and Kyrgyzstan is preparing eligible. And then I will recommend and for the high quality and high integrity carbon credit, maybe we need to consider very valuable site readiness. Second, I'd like to recommend the blended finance. Regarding the carbon project, we need a lot of money, also very big scale project site. In order to secure this fund, maybe only, public sector not eligible. We need to combine together public sector, also private sector. And then combining public resources, concessional loan, concessional fund, and private capital is very important. APOCO is piloting such models through, for example, climate asset management, pollination, Rabobank ACOM program, also MDB, such as Asian Development Bank. Given limited large continuous area in many Asian countries, also Article 3 mentioned the jurisdictional level. Also, also this is my personal view. I recommended the led plus approach is necessary for maintaining integrity while scaling a project. Why? When we implemented a carbon project, we approach, how can I say, we face a challenge of many the double counting methods, also small project, right? Maybe sometimes it is not eligible to conduct the jurisdictional level approach, this one, and then we need to consider. And then, the last but not least, in order to align with the global carbon market trend, we need to explore how regional forest credit could be connected with mechanism such as Croatia also mentioned that, also South Pole, also the art tree also mentioned that. Also today also the Korea government Ministry of Economy and Finance, they already announced, also launched the GVCM, Global Voluntary Carbon Market Platform, especially as the international landscape continues to evolve. Our aim to ensure that mitigation outcomes meet high integrity standard while contributing to national NDC. These days, maybe APOCO, as a team leader, our APOCO carbon project, we developed like this AR project, Lead Plus project, Blue Carbon project, agroforestry carbon project. But we very difficult in securing the project site, also funding source, also governance methods. Please consider this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Choi Sung-ho. And I think we can listen the more comments about the carbon markets in Korea from Mr. Anand-seop.
Hello, my name is Eun-seop in KOFPI. Our institutes operate Korean Forest Carbon Scheme, KFCS. Actually, we KOFPI are not exactly the government, but a savvy government organization which implement government policies. So we can have the chance to meet and talk with forest owner, company, and the academia community who are participate in the forest carbon market. So in this discussion, I would like to talk about two things. First, the challenges while operating KFCS. Second, the lesson from these challenges. As Dr. Sun-jin mentioned, it is hard to manage the forest in Korea. In the case of private forest, they are divided into so small sites and they abandon their forest because the forest owner can earn their money by the forestry. In this situation, to improve private forest management, our government introduced a voluntary carbon market system. This is KFCS. This allows forest owners to voluntarily manage their forest, and they can sell carbon credit to companies who want to use credit for ESG purpose. Although it starts with good intention, we face the biggest challenge in operating KFCS. Maybe Pedro know how it is to get some integrity in carbon credit. The biggest challenge is improving the quality of forest carbon credit in Korea. In 2022, greenwashing became an issue in VCM. To resolve this, the ICVCM presented 10 core carbon principles. In this situation, KFCS has also strived to enhance its quality for years. We are currently collaborating with the National Institute of Forest Science in Korea to revise IFM methodologies. We also strengthen validation process for registering carbon projects. especially we adopt NFI QA QC standards. So we do cold check and double check over 10% of the survey's flood and evaluate the accuracy of the forest survey. We also promote digital MRV. We revise forest investor guideline to introduce remote sensing technologies. Last year, a new carbon project model based on drone radar has been successfully registered. Finally, in Asia, we make marketplace which can track carbon credit flow by using blockchain techniques. During this change, it is true that there will many complaints from project developer regarding high cost and high project difficulty. Frankly, we also spent a lot of time explaining the change and persuading them why this is change and why we have accelerated the credit's integrity. During this change, many people are interested in our KFCS, and we can expand Forest Carbon Network. As Professor Charlie Rim mentioned, technology-based carbon projects with collaboration between company and academia are gradually increased. Carbon buyers are also beginning to consider forest carbon credit in various ways in Korea. With the growing importance of MBS, Korean company interested in value of forest and more seriously consider to use forest carbon credit in Korea. For example, Sony Korea use forest carbon credit to implement net zero purpose, and we can collaborate with Japanese travel agency. Travel agency used Korean carbon credit and J credit to offset their carbon footprint from people who travel to Japan. Nowadays, as K-pop culture expands and growing up, there are some cases where the forest carbon credit is used to offset the YG concert emission. As you know, YG is famous for Blackpink. Yeah. I know that there are many things to do for achieving carbon credit integrity, but we will able to improve KFCS gradually. I think one of the driving force behind this success was the continuous communication among stakeholders. Through continuous communication with forest owner and project developer and validation third party and academia, we will able to share consensus on this change, and we can do change. It is a great lesson and very valuable experience to me. I believe this side advantage also is extension of this communication. So I hope that our international guests who want to know our KFCS will continue to explore collaboration opportunity in various ways with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anunsup. So, are there any more details or comments from the speakers about the comments? Or if there is any questions from the floor, please raise your hand for the questions.
I have two questions to Christina. I have two questions to Christina. First, national level inventory methodologies differ from some national one. When applying corresponding adjustment, how are these methodological differences or corrected? And second is related to additionality. Natural reforestation may raise concern regarding additionality. In this case, is natural reforestation eligible for crediting? I saw your slide.
Yeah. Sure. So thank you. Great questions. So for the first one, there is no requirement that the tree's crediting level matches the FREL that is submitted to the UNFCCC. They're not going to be perfectly honest. So our goal when we wrote this standard is for governments to be able to use as much of the data that they use to report to the UNFCCC as possible. But the calculation is going to be different because we have elements, the UNFCCC FREL allows activities that we don't allow. We have different uncertainty requirements, we have leakage, we have risk of reversal deductions. So ultimately the tree's crediting level will not match the FREL, and we don't require that. So if a country wants to do a corresponding adjustment, they can choose some or all of the tree's credits to offer a corresponding adjustment to, but the numbers aren't going to 100% align. And I think that that's okay, right? We are not a Paris Accord, UNFCCC, Article 6 mechanism. We are a way to generate finance. So, if you think about it, that if you're looking for different types of finance, you might have some through trees. You have a number there. The Tropical Forest Forever facility is going to have a different number for a different type of finance. Projects will have a different number, and that's okay. What we don't want to do is create new work for governments, which is why we try to enable the data to be used the same. There are some governments that are starting to incorporate uncertainty deductions or things into their FRELs, and so then the numbers are closer, but we don't actually require that. What we do require is that you report something to the UNFCCC and that forests are part of your NDC, but we don't require 100% alignment because it's just not going to match. For additionality, so we do allow in our removals for natural restoration, either passive or active, but it has to be linked to a RED Plus activity. So even for passive natural restoration, it has to be linked to a government decision to let that area regrow or to set it aside as a protected area, or there has to be something associated with it. It can't just be, I found this area that was regrowing and I'm now going to claim credits. So it does have to be linked. We do think that that's additional. There's no alternative land use that's going to pay less than letting it regrow, right? So, so it falls into our additionality situation that way, but it does have to be linked to a RED Plus activity. So even the passive regrowth has to have a policy or an action or something associated with it. That answers.
Do you have any comments or additional some details about?
Yeah, I can add a few thoughts and great presentations. It's actually every year impressive to see the progress in Korea, and I think a lot of the technological advances that you've presented today are extremely relevant for the world, and you've been experimenting and testing and laying it out in different countries. But I think these technologies are this is the direction of travel around DMRV, and it's a great export product effectively for Korea as well. So thinking about these advances and how to finance and go faster and position them in the market so that finance can flow more efficiently, effectively to projects is extremely important, right? So that plays to the international cooperation programs that you're leading. I wanted to also comment quickly on the integrity question and the lack of demand question, and the supply and demand are completely linked effectively. And I think the work that you're doing on improving the standard, on looking at core carbon principles and what other methodologies, how they've tackled certain questions, and really going beyond the technicalities and the why certain things have been done in a certain way to drive conservativeness, for example, is extremely important. And on the demand side, clarifying the use case. What is the value for a company to actually buy carbon credits for its communication, and making sure that there is consultation, that hopefully there's a regulation around the environmental claims so that companies can make a claim with assurance that it's going to land with their consumers exactly the way that they want it, and that it makes it a worth it investment in purchasing the carbon credits and communicating about them. We've seen a lot of hesitance in the market lately globally, and I think it's as a government institution, I think it's really worth looking at how to regulate those environmental claims to provide that confidence with Korean buyers wanting to buy Korean carbon credits.
Thank you for additional comments. And I think if there is no more questions from the floor, I think we can conclude today's session. And thank you for participating our session once again. And we can take a group photo with the speakers and panelists, and then we can finish our session. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you.
네네. 전 여기서 있겠습니다. 좋아요. 일로 와요, 일로 와.